Good evening. Welcome to Athens City Council one more time.
Right.
Tonight is Monday, December 19th, 2011. We do have a quorum with all members of council present. Item 2 on our agenda is disposition of minutes, and we have before us the minutes from the regular session of council held on November 7th, 21st, and December 5th, and special sessions held on November 28th and December 7th. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion and second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Under communications, Member Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to announce that the citizens who live on Richland Avenue, and these would include business owners, residents, business managers, have been invited to attend a public meeting, and it's going to be discussing the upcoming Richland Avenue Improvements Project. And the meeting will be January 4th between 1:30 and 4 o'clock. And so just wanted to announce that that notice has been sent out to the residents of Richland Avenue, so they've been notified of it also. And it will be held at the, I'm looking for it here, I believe it will be held at the OU Inn.
Very good. Other comments?
Can be
Other communications? Member Sands.
President Bias, I would like to move that we accept the auditor's report for the month of November, which we have received.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The reports have been accepted. Any other communications any member of council wishes to share? Reports and communications from other elected officials. Mayor Weil.
Let's see, I have not much, except there won't be any trash delays for the holidays. And also, I'd like you to reappoint, if possible, Betty Hollow to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I don't know if you got that.
Is that one that we will be handling that later in our
Other
agenda?
than that, I don't know if there's anything else I need to report.
Very good. City Auditor Kathy Heck.
Well, I don't really have a report. I just want to make one comment. 10 years ago, I was a newbie up on council, and I will certainly miss the help of Nancy, Bill, and Sherry, who's done a lot just in her few years on council. It's been a pleasure working with you. We will miss you greatly. Thank you.
Thank you. No report? Yeah. City Law Director Patrick Lang.
Much in echoing Kathy's comments, I would just say that as a city council member in the 90s, I just want to thank both you and Nancy. As a 19-year-old member at the time, you never hesitated to include me and to treat me as any other member, and I really appreciated that and still do to this day. And Sherry, it's been great to work with you the last couple of terms here. I know that oftentimes I was really, you'll sometimes be the last member to comment on something, but you can always tell that you've put in the thought, and it's always a value added every time that you weigh in on a debate. And I really just admire the deliberative way that you've gone about addressing city issues, and you'll all certainly be missed.
Thank you.
I'll miss you too.
Moving on, ordinances for third reading. Ordinance 12511, an ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Athens, Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2012. Member Sands.
Mr. President, I move adoption of ordinance 12511.
Second.
This is the ordinance that approves our annual budget for 2012. The mayor might want to say a few words about it before we say aye.
Well, essentially, we haven't changed it that much. We probably will change it a lot next year, as we do. As you look at the agenda tonight, and we have various changes to the appropriation from this year, even at the last minute. Again, it's about $33.6 million total. Some of that includes a good chunk of it for the Oxbow Bridge. I'm sure there's something I've made mistakes or missed some fund lines along the way, but we'll work on those as the time goes on. Other than that, it's the best I can put together. And again, the general fund is going to be running 11.9 and change. And as you look at it, you realize most of it, majority of it, 79% of it is in the TC 100s or the personnel fund lines. And we pretty much knocked out everything in the capital outlay for that at this point.
Other comments? Yes, Member Fall.
I'd like to commend everybody who worked on the budget, seeing how Columbus and our governor have dealt us such a blow with the cutbacks of 25% for the next 2 years. That and all the other things being what they are, I commend everybody because that is a huge blow. And we don't want to lay off people. We don't want to be cutting back people. And so I thank you.
Other comments? Member Nisley.
Just to second Chris's comment, but to add also a thank you to all the employees who abide by that budget, and that's difficult to do in tight economic times, tight budget times, and do it with, I think, the strong sense of service and responsibility and loyalty that our employees have. So thank you to all of them.
Any other comments? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 12511?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 12611 is an ordinance authorizing staffing levels, a non-union pay scale, and slotting for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2012, repealing all other ordinances inconsistent therewith, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I move adoption of ordinance 12611.
Second.
This does just what it says.
Are there any other comments? Again, Member Fall.
Were they here declaring an emergency several times? More than several times. In the next few ordinances, can you explain what that is?
I'd be happy to. Ordinances only take place after 30 days after the mayor would sign an ordinance. 30 days from now would be well into January, and of course we cannot do that. So all ordinances that you see before you tonight will have a emergency clause attached. This time of the year, for the 22 years I've hung around this room, that's how you do business. So it's nothing out of the ordinary, and I think it's a bit of a misnomer, but that is how it works. Did I explain that sufficiently?
Thank you.
Okay, sure. Any other comments on ordinance 126? All those in favor of the ordinance?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 12711 is an ordinance adopting a fringe benefit package for non-union personnel within the city of Athens and repealing all ordinances inconsistent therewith and declaring an emergency. Member Bain, do you want to speak to any of
Move
this?
adoption of 12711.
Second.
12711 does something a little bit different than you might expect. We ended for non-union employees the concept of, the few that still had it, the concept, the benefit of longevity, and we moved the money into their base in order to not short them out. So instead of sort of a Christmas club payout for a few, they will have higher salaries, and they will be paid out over the course of the year. The reasons for doing that are several. I think that the total compensation package is much more obvious when you have it in this way. And also, the auditor's office and our fiscal management is easier when you don't have this huge loss of movement of money out of the funds at the end of the year. I think that's the main fringe benefit. I think some people, I've noticed a little frostiness out there, and I hope that those people who are frosty will notice that they have a more income the first of the year coming in. I mean, who knows what's going on in D.C., but, basically, their base salary should be increased, and whatever else happens, happens. But, so it's over 26 pays instead of one big pay, and it's for several reasons, for equity and for transparency, I think, as well, and that's what we're doing here. And the one thing I hope that you do, and this is just an admonishment, but make sure you take care of those people beyond the midpoint and under the longevity, because they are the ones who didn't get longevity and who could be brought up a little bit in the future. I mean, if you ever get to the point where you have money to the grant. Who knows what's going to happen? Anyway, it's an attempt to make sure everyone knows what the salaries are.
Further comments on ordinance 127? All in favor of the ordinance? Aye. Opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. Ordinance 12811 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to extend the current contract to provide financial support for the operation of the Athens County Convention and Visitors Bureau and declaring an emergency. Member Sands.
Mr. President, I move adoption of ordinance 12811.
Second.
This is a contract that the city has had with the Convention and Visitors Bureau for several years, and this, in short, authorizes that the Convention and Visitors Bureau would receive 35% of the income derived from the hotel motel bed tax.
Other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 128 has been adopted. Ordinance 12911 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to provide financial support for the operation of the Athens County Economic Development Council and declaring an emergency. Member Sands.
Mr. President, I move
Nobody's raising their hand here. I'll sign it.
I move adoption of ordinance 12911.
Second.
Again, this is a contract that we have entered into several years in the past with the Economic Development Council. And in short, this also authorizes that they receive 35% of the tourism money that it's collected. However, we cap that receipt at $55,000. So 35% only as far as $55,000.
Other comments? Member Fall.
Since I'm the chairperson of the Development Committee, I'd like to ask in the future that we have more reporting from them. They do a year-end, a yearly update. I'd like to see more. And also, I'd like to reiterate that this is, people say, oh, what is the city doing for economic development? Well, not many of us are experts in economic development, and this is what we do for trying to encourage businesses to expand and come to Athens County. It's a county-city partnership, and this is us working in partnership with people to do things. I think that the number of tools that are available to the city as it is limited, and this is one of our most, the more powerful tools that we have.
Member Butler.
Thank you. I'd like to concur with Member Fall and add again that I think accountability is important, and I too encourage more rapport and more reporting from that department. The Athens County Economic Development Council. And additionally, again, this is a positive note, it's a good example of partnerships because the university also helps fund that department, that council, as well as the county. Is that correct?
The county, Hopkins College, Nelsonville, several of the townships. It's an organization throughout the county that does this.
Yes. Mayor Weil. Was there any other member of council first? No. Mayor Weil.
They are working on their report for 2010, I know that. They also coordinate with the Port Authority, Athens County Port Authority, which of course works with the Poston plant, or now the Bill Tyson Industrial Park, the CIC, Community Improvement Corporation. I went with Todd Shelton Thursday to Buckeye Hills Development District, which is another economic development engine that's for the region, 8-county region. And I know they're trying to pull together that 25-county region for the Jobs Ohio representation of that organization as well. So there's a lot of things going on. The landscape is changing, and the concept is how to speak regionally with one voice and a strong voice. But the fact is that Ohio University and the county and the city, the major players in this county, are involved. It's a good thing because we don't step on each other's toes and we coordinate. And the major thrust is business retention and business growth within the county and the region, and looking at the needs of that. So there's a lot that goes on, and again, I rely on their expertise. we are running a city. I know part of the city is jobs and economics, but we're not the experts on it. We can't spend full time looking at it either. The best we can do, as I say, the Thursday meeting was actually brainstorming of what kind of framework for this 25 county region is looking for, what we'd expect in somebody to hire somebody to run it. But also what the parts would be played in there. And if there was a nice little flow chart there, well, as a city, we're in the long-term long-term impact of infrastructure. And really that's our job as a city, is to provide the matrices or the infrastructure or the ability for jobs to come here, have a place to work, have the, whether it's broadband or just the water running, to have it work for them to come and want to work here or grow here. So they're doing a lot of work on it. They realize that it's a very small organization. The Economic Development Council really has 2 paid employees. They have a marketing aspect. I don't know if you open up your Facebook, you'll see the business remix thing is one of those ads right in your face all the time. They're pursuing helping businesses actually build up where they are. So, and if you want, you can always be welcome to contact Todd Shelton and ask him pointed questions of what you think should be happening and what you think is happening, and he will tell you. Okay?
Thanks, Paul. Any other comments? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 12911? Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 13011, an ordinance authorizing a stop-loss medical insurance contract and declaring an emergency. Member Bain.
Mr. President, I move adoption of 13011.
Second.
13011 was recommended by our new personnel person, human resources person now after the ordinance, Claudia Regan, who suggested that we could afford to amp it up a little bit, go up to $100,000 deductible. And so following her lead, that will mean that our employees have a slightly lower administrative cost amount that they will be paying, slightly lower. We was curious, we did it twice in the same year, and before that I couldn't remember another time we had changed it. So it seems like having a focus, knowing what we're doing has been an advantage here, and it'll pay off for our employees.
Other comments? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 130?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 13111, an ordinance adding an in-network deductible to the City of Athens Health Benefit Plan for non-union employees and declaring an emergency. Again, Member Bain.
Mr. President, move adoption of 13111.
Second.
13111 has added a deductible to the non-union employees insurance plan for in-network. Previously, we had a network deductible that was higher. So those people who are using the in-network options of United Healthcare will have, again, a smaller amount to meet in order to be on the pay, to be on the city's dime after that point. So again, I thank Claudia Regan, the human resources person, for suggesting this change. I would say that one of my goals is accomplished. Everybody pays a premium, everybody pays a deductible in the non-union group, which is good.
Other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 131 is adopted. Ordinance 13211 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the U.S. EPA to settle pending legal issues related to the closed REPRA closure project and declaring an emergency. Member Sands, your turn.
Mr. President, I move adoption of ordinance 13211.
Second.
Actually, Deputy Auditor Mr. Hazlett came and talked to us quite a while about this, and this is some money that we are obligated to pay to settle all the questions with regard to the RECPRA problem that we've been dealing with for several years. And this will, in addition to the funding that we've already approved several weeks ago, this should put this all to rest for the city.
Other comments? Nancy, I would be remiss if I didn't say that you and I were the only two people that was on council when the initial germ of the problem started
Right.
20-some years ago, that if there is a God in heaven, this finally puts to rest. So
It's fitting and
it feels
proper.
good
We're done.
to see that at our last meeting,
We're
that this is finally being
Amen.
done away with.
Yes.
All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 132?
Aye.
Those opposed? Dear God, it's adopted. Ordinance 13311, an ordinance approving the Athens Hocking Solid Waste Management Plan. Member Bain.
Mr. President, I move adoption of 13311.
Second.
You've read about it in the paper. I asked the mayor if he wanted to slow it down. He said no, he wants to get it passed right away. This is what it looks like. One would think that there is a huge amount of cost to be accrued to each of us. It's about $3 per family per year, and that won't be very much. The advantage of collecting a generation fee is, right now, we are losing approximately one-third of our, we're not losing it, it's going to another county, so we're not collecting anything in the system that we're currently using to fund recycling. Well, we fund recycling, $300,000 as a city, but also there's the regular landfill fee funding. And I hadn't really tumbled to this until I went, Fred Kite invited me on, and I looked at the executive summary again, and I said, oh, look at that. So we'll have more money when we have this new $3 fee. It's not going to be that much. $3 a person, it's going to be under $100 for all of us. It's not going to be that much money. Everybody will pay it, whether they take it out to Rumpke's landfill in Jackson or way beyond. I can't believe they're driving garbage. Oh, here I am doing my hands again, and I should be more conscious of that. In Pike County, way out to Pike County. I mean, you've got to wonder, with all the opportunities for disposal, why they go to Pike County. But they are taking about a third, 25% to 33% of our trash out of the county. And so we get absolutely nothing on that. So that's one thing I see as a real advantage to this. I am a citizen member. I'm on by virtue of being a citizen of the county, and the mayor is the point man, I think, for the city, and I hope he has some things to say about it. It is a plan that has a long history associated with it. Potentially, it's going to be, we're hoping it's going to get passed. Praying. I don't know, maybe holiday cheer you'll know in January, February. And I'm going to see what the mayor has to say. He goes to those meetings. I can't.
Mayor Ryle.
This is an updated plan of our solid waste plan. The thrust of the plan is an EPA mandate saying we have to divert some of our waste stream out of landfill and into recycle bins or recycled conduits. The city is about 25%. We do our sorting at the curbside. It's been around since 1980. The plans are usually 15-year plans with 5-year updates. We're doing our 5-year update. The next one will be another 5 years where actually they will start measuring the percentage that is being diverted. At this point, the benchmark is how many people have access to recycling in the two-county system. It's Hocking County, Athens County. As it stands now, almost 90% of people can get to recycling bin someplace in the county. They do not take advantage of it. Our recycling percentage is about 9% between the two counties. The city is about 25%. So we're ahead of the game in that sense. But our technology is older. If we actually ramped up, if our two-county district ramped up to 25%, we would not have the facility to actually handle all that material, recyclables. Which is why the $3 generation fee has been suggested in our new plan, because we'd have to grow facilities to actually handle all the recycling. Get it out to brokers, package it. We have one, I think, vertical baler, which means you dump it in the bottom, you squeeze it down, then you have to get it out again. A horizontal baler is much higher technology. So the idea is how to streamline it, and that's really what the $3 generation fee is supposed to fund, so we can upgrade our system. There is, as I said, it's a two-county system. I hope it passes. It is a mandate. We are stuck to that mandate. There's no magic words that would get us out of that mandate. And as you know, I'm attending these meetings, so is Nancy Bain, as for the policy meetings, as well as the solid waste district meetings. There's a representative from the EPA there, says every once in a while, I'm concerned it's not being done properly, or we're not up to snuff yet. And you, of course, having just read the last EPA RCRA thing, when the EPA says we're not particularly happy, my ears perk up. Maybe not other members in the steering planning commission, with the exception of Nancy, they don't take this seriously as we do. But we've seen what happens when you get your toe stuck in the EPA. You can get it ground off or it's sucked in, one or the other. I'm hoping it does pass. It requires 60% of both counties as well as the largest municipalities and the county commissioners to sign on, and 60% of the townships, I believe, by population. So they're making the rounds and they're going to be feeding it in. They have 90 days to reply, and therefore we won't know till February. If it doesn't pass, the EPA will come in and make a plan for us. It probably won't be exactly what we want. In fact, probably it won't be anything we want for the most part, because they'll be fitting their dictates and their funding. They'll put a funding mechanism on top of us too, so it might get real pricey. Right now we have a bargain. You can put as much recycled out for $350, but it's going to cost you to put more bags of garbage out, and so it's a pay as you throw. You want to add something, Nancy? I see you're about to.
No, $4.50.
$4.50. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
We just pay it and don't even pay attention. One other
It's a
thing I
bargain.
thought, if we ever have it is a bargain. We have probably the lowest trash recycling fees of anybody in the state. But the other thing is, if something should happen to go south, I've had Debbie checking on our participation financially in the solid waste district before it became a solid waste district, so, because we participated in a baler, we contributed money, a plastics grinder, the building of the buildings. We gave them the garbage trucks when they went into the garbage. So if it should come to some kind of splitting of the sheets, make sure that you get back to Debbie and find out, go back to that original contract and say, we want our 3 garbage trucks back. The landfill almost been shredded, but the spirit is there. And because we have, it's not just like we've benefited from it all. We've really put a lot into it. We put $3,000 a year. We put material and goods into it. So, as a city, over time. So don't forget that, please.
Other comments? All those in favor of ordinance 133?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 13411 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA Federal Local LET project agreement for the Ohio Department of Transportation ODOT for the Oxbow Bridge, project number 247, and declaring an emergency. Member Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption of ordinance 13411.
Second.
Okay. And this is the necessary paperwork that we have. It's called a LET project agreement, and the Service Safety Director is authorized to enter into it. We have to have this in place and signed before we can file our construction documents with the Federal Highway Administration so that we can have the authorization to spend our federal funds for the Oxbow project.
And it needs done now. Other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 134 has been adopted. Ordinance 13511, an ordinance authorizing construction engineering and construction of the Oxbow Bridge, project number 247, and declaring an emergency. Again, Member Nisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move adoption of ordinance 13511.
Second.
And as in the title, it explains it, that we're authorizing the construction engineering and construction of the Oxbow project. And this will be known as project number 247. It is the old bridge that was built in the 30s and is very much in need of repair. It's a $3.8 million project, $2.5 million of which will be coming from federal municipal bridge grant monies. And then some provided in cost sharing by Ohio University, $411,000 from them because they will be helping to repair the utility lines that are underneath the bridge. And then we have $3.1 million from the Small Cities Grant Fund and $664,000 of ours from the Street Rehab Fund and $19,000 from the Street Fund. So a project with several sources of funding.
Other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 13511 has been adopted. Ordinance 13611, an ordinance establishing a debt and fund balance policy for the city of Athens. Member Sands.
Mr. President, I move adoption of ordinance 13611.
Second?
This ordinance was requested by the city auditor and the city treasurer. They were asked to lead us in developing this policy by their state auditors. And so what this simply does is it establishes a policy that we will develop what we call a carryover in our budget of somewhere between 7 and, what was our upper number?
7.5 to 15%.
I'm
7.5 to 15%.
So in that range, percent of the total amount of the of our general fund budget. And so we have established that policy, and our budget is well within that range for this year.
Other comments? All those in favor of ordinance 136?
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 13711, an ordinance adjusting the existing ward boundaries in the city of Athens in accordance with the 2010 federal census and declaring an emergency. Who is speaking to this? I guess it's, could somebody wake up Member Falls?
As I said last time, that this is in accordance with the 2010 federal census. This is adjusting the ward boundaries, just like the city, like the state adjusted their boundaries. And,
Not at all.
and you know, I didn't say anything. And of course, the House and Senate, well, the House adjusted their boundaries. We've not committed any gerrymandering, I am happy to say. It's been very minimal, the amount of line drawing that we have done. So if people looked at it, they would say, how has it changed? And that's how it should be, quite frankly.
Block here and a block
Block there.
there, and that's about it.
Yes.
So,
Did you move
Yes.
adoption?
did we move
Oh,
adoption?
I'm sorry. I move to adopt ordinance
And that's- do we
137.
have a second?
Sorry. And
And we're looking for other comments. Member
Other
Sands.
comments, I would just like to acknowledge that our planner, Paul Lowe, put an inordinate amount of time into this and listened to all of us when we suggested line moves, millimeter here or one street level there. So it's been very helpful.
To have, of our 4 wards in the city, as near equal population as we can in each of the wards. And so that's why there's been adjustment.
And I'd like to point out, they're more equal now than
Yes.
they have been in the past. So we're pretty
Member
more-
Butler.
Thank you. I support this measure, though I would be remiss if I didn't say I'm going to be sad to lose some of my North Congress voters. So, cheers.
Mayor Weil.
As you stated, it gets adjusted every 10 years if possible. The last 2000 census, nothing was adjusted because of the ambiguity of the zone of the census blocks, if you remember. They ended up with a lot at Scott Quad because the mailing addresses ended up there.
Yeah.
So technically, nothing was done for the past 10 years, and the previous 10 years from 1990 to 2000, those, we don't know how far off they were balanced because we couldn't get the good numbers on it. 2010, we had some help from ILGAR. We have a contract for GIS, ILGAR, to allow the number crunching for the census blocks and the positions. I think we discovered when we looked at the present 2010 census, we were about 1,000 between the top and the bottom wards, which is why we had to rechange some of the lines. We're about 100 difference right now, 120. So this represents a better quartering of the city, so to speak. And again, it represents bodies, not voters.
Yeah. Very good. Other comments? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 137? Aye. Opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Ordinance 13811 is an ordinance amending the 2011 appropriation ordinance. Member Kuhn, what are you doing here?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt ordinance 13811.
Second.
This ordinance has two sections. The first section consists of decreasing and increasing. Decreasing internal service fund 865 transaction class 200-300 by $20,000 and increasing TC 500 by $20,000 to purchase a vehicle mobile column lift for the service garage. Decreasing wheel tax fund 226 TC 500 by $69,600 and increasing street fund 220 TC 500 by $69,600 in order to balance year-end certified resources for the Grosvenor Street Slip project. And decreasing transportation assistance fund 214 TC 500 by $30,000 and increasing transportation assistance fund 214 TC 200-300 by $20,000. Section 2 would appropriate $15,000 to General Fund Fire 101.208 TC 500 vehicle replacement. This would be to replace the old 1994 Jeep. I consider this a safety issue. And my personal opinion is that no one should be riding around in this Jeep.
Other comments? Yes.
I do have a problem with the, what I heard as the proposed replacement vehicle for that. It was, I guess this is more for the administration, is it a 2008 Chevy Blazer that's being considered?
I believe so, and I'd like to I understand your comments, and I get that the Green Fleet Committee did not convene to address this replacement. When the Green Fleet Committee convened back in October of 2010, they authorized a replacement vehicle for the fire chief that would indeed be something that he can utilize and have the capabilities in terms of response. What I tasked him with is, can't you go out and find a used vehicle that is, not $30-some thousand? And he did exactly what I asked. So
I guess I don't feel like I should be up here asking about specific types of vehicles, but I feel that I have to because this is exactly the opposite of what Green Fleet calls for. This is buying a bigger vehicle. Even though it's used, it's still going to decrease the efficiency of our city fleet compared to alternative replacements that would be much better financially in the long run for the city and also environmentally. And so I'm wondering if there were any other vehicles considered that would have been smaller or more efficient.
I sent him out to a used car lot, so I don't know if you've been out there shopping, but used cars are kind of at a premium.
Yes, Member Kuhn.
I don't know a lot about vehicles, so I asked somebody who knows a lot about vehicles. I just happened to be married to him. And I asked him about the size of the 2008 Blazer, if that's what it's going to be, as compared to an Expedition, which I believe the fire chief is driving at this moment. And he told me that a 2008 Blazer is about the same size as a Ford Escape, which is smaller than. So we might be headed in the right direction with this vehicle, if this is the vehicle it's going to be.
Other comments?
Well, I checked on fueleconomy.com and found out that it gets about 12 miles to the gallon, so it's pretty poor. I mean, I don't think we should wrap this one in a Green Fleet's thing. I mean, I think it's a real abuse of Green Fleet's terminology. Sorry. I mean, you can say, okay, we're going to buy it because it's cheaper and he really needs it. It's the most important thing to buy next year. Okay, I'll buy that maybe. But I'm not going to say this is a Green Fleet's. This is a big honking car, vehicle, with a big gas mileage drain. But maybe we'll all be on natural gas by the end of next year, so it won't matter. But
Let me
I
ask
do
my
think
own
it's...
point of order. Are we looking to pass this tonight?
Yes.
Okay. I have not heard move to...
She did.
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed it.
I did.
I was listening.
And spaced out there for a moment. Okay. Other comments? Member Gosney.
And it is a good point that the size is not much larger than a Ford Escape, but the mileage is much worse. And so it seems to me that it's a bigger vehicle than we need for that particular spot, and just way too inefficient with fuel.
So could we, I'm not, there's a lot of important stuff in this ordinance, and it sort of got packaged together at the last minute, so it's like a take it or leave it. But with that in mind, I'm going to say, I hope you do a better job of green fleets from here on in and stop abusing that term, is what I would say. And that's my take-home lesson. It's pretty caustic, but I don't think it isn't a green fleets thing. I mean, maybe you have to check the personnel in the committee or do something else, but fueleconomy.com, you can find out what they're worth. And I'm aggravated that it's all together and but anyway, let's see, do we have enough votes to pass it without me? Yeah, with an emergency? Well, it doesn't have to, it just needs, you're fine, okay.
Could I ask a point of order question, or maybe not point of order, but council rules? We could amend this and strike part of it and then pass it under suspension. In order to
That's
get-
literally what I was starting to ask the law director.
Only two of us. So.
And that can be, I think we need to pull the consider under suspension first and then move to amend, or does that really matter?
Right, we've got a pending motion right now that would take precedent on that, so we need to
Remove that motion to consider under suspension of the rules.
Are we sure it's not going to pass?
I think it's going to pass.
I think it might pass.
It is totally up to you. So, other comments?
Other comments possibly for you? Okay. There is a requirement for hauling things around. We have 4 trailers that belong to the fire department, okay? One trailer is not necessary to be any emergency. That's where you have to teach the kids how to go under the smoke. They have simulated burning building one. One is for construction material for a building collapse. This is all the extra wood that's required to get to a site when there's a structure that is unstable. The other one, of course, is a hazmat situation where you need to get it from point A to point B. The third one that is of emergency is the water rescue. Now, I don't know how often the water rescue is being done, but if somebody's drowning, I guess we ought to get it there. We could always attach it to the back of a fire truck, which is probably slightly less fuel efficient, as well as they'd have to go back to the station to get it. The point of having this is that we have a second vehicle placed at one station or the other to be able to get these trailers to a place when we need it. If we go to a place and say, yes, there's a hazmat situation, let's go drive back to the fire station and get it. Or you say, let's get a La Bamba to do that. We're trying to get rid of the La Bambas, first of all.
Okay.
That's under suspension.
It is.
No, it's not
Adoption.
It's at adoption.
We are moving, we really need to get back to why are we considering this under suspension of the
There will be.
rules? It's not adopted.
That was why I was thrown off by the question earlier, because I was asked about suspension of the rules. If that is, pending motion is one for adoption, then the motion to amend would take precedent over that.
What I'm having trouble understanding is how are we adopting it without suspending the rules on first reading? Oh, I misunderstood. I am. I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay.
Are you
Chris.
okay with...
I've not been as involved with the Green Fleet policy, and I admire the general goals of that. But in this particular case, I feel like we've made a recommendation that the service safety director acted in good faith to work with the fire chief. I understand the mayor's considerations also that we're trying to haul heavier equipment with the vehicle and sometimes haul equipment. I understand Councilmember Kuhn's position also that it's a 1994 vehicle. So I guess, I think my point is to say that I will support the passing of this ordinance tonight, and say that in the future, if we want to look at fueleconomy.com, if we want to make recommendations knowing this kind of vehicles coming up for replacement, that we do it on the proactive, or, earlier in the process perhaps, more engaged in conversation about it, so that we can try and resolve this.
Are there any other comments? Yes, Member Fall.
I agree in part with what Chris is saying. I think, though, the idea behind a Green Fleets policy is that you do that already. I mean, we've had this policy for how long? And what I'm hearing is the service safety directors indicating that we need to get a cheap vehicle, a used, inexpensive vehicle, but the Green Fleet's policy should have everybody thinking about long-term versus short-term costs. And it may be inexpensive to start with because it's used, but in the long run, especially if gas prices go up, it's not going to be cheap, because even though it's cheaper in the, on the front end, we still have to balance the costs, and that's why we have a Green Fleets policy, to get these thoughts. I mean, it shouldn't be, this is a year-old or year-and-a-half-old policy. This shouldn't be new to people's thoughts. This should have been upfront with the thought when this whole thing went forward, with the fire chief looking at used vehicles. I mean, there are used, that they may be at a premium, but you could still have a list of priorities, and we have indicated as City Council that we want a Green Fleets priority. And so I'm willing to go along with it because I agree with Councilman Coons with the fact that it's like a completely dangerous Jeep that's driving around on the streets and it's going to drive off the road and hit some little old lady. And so, but it shouldn't be a discussion now about whether you think about Green Fleets. This should be what we think about automatically at the city level.
Other comments?
I'm taking my role as Nancy.
All those in favor of adoption ordinance 138?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
I am counting 5-2.
It is.
Okay. And the ordinance passes. Ordinance 13911 is an ordinance amending ordinance 9111 authorizing construction of the Carriage Hill Bridge Rehabilitation Project Number 261 and declaring an emergency. Member Bain.
I move adoption of 13911.
Second.
I think I have this because maybe Chris wasn't here at the time, but she probably knows Carriage Hill better than I do. This is necessary to increase the amount that we had allocated for this activity, and you know it's going to be programmed into the larger Oxbow Bridge activity as a credit, but because the decking needed to be fixed, and so the whole purpose for doing it was to fix the bridge, and I guess you've got to start with the decking, so we added extra money to it, knowing that it would go into our larger amount of money available when we do the Oxbow Bridge.
Other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 13911 is adopted. Moving on to ordinances for first reading, where I thought we were some time ago. I apologize, council members, I somehow got out of sync there.
Rushing through.
Ordinance, wishful thinking. Ordinance 14011 is an ordinance authorizing repair of the Columbus Road storm line and declaring an emergency. Member Bain.
Mr. President, I move to consider 14011 under suspension of the rules.
Second.
The reason for the suspension is that we have the initial storm sewer line dug up, and now it's another one of those where we have to do some additional work. And the city engineer says that we need to connect a second storm line, repair it. The cost is very high because the storm line is very deep. And so we're putting in about another $50,000 to take care of the initial storm line problem that we've encountered on Columbus Road. And those of you who've been out there notice the piles of dirt. They're waiting for I don't think they're waiting, but anyway, they're out there for us.
Other
Be
comments? We are adopting,
Suspension.
further discussion on suspension. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The rules have been suspended.
I move adoption of 14011.
Second.
14011 is a storm sewer line that we have decided to repair probably late in the year, but it needed it. There were some problems with collapse, I think. I may be wrong on that one, but there were problems just with operations, and so this additional improvement will make the storm sewer line work more effectively. And in that area, it really does need to be effective.
Other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 140 has been adopted under suspension of the rules. Ordinance 14111 is an ordinance amending the 2011 appropriation ordinance. Member Sands.
Mr. President, I move that we consider ordinance 14111 under suspension of the rules.
Second.
If council members have glanced at this ordinance, they'll see that there are three things happening here. All of them are financial movements of money to cover year-end expenses. The year-end is fast approaching.
Other comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ordinance 14111 has been adopted.
Suspended.
I'm sorry.
Leave me alone, aren't you, Bill?
Boy, I'll tell you, I'm running out of steam quick here, aren't I? The rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now I'd like to move that we consider ordinance, that we adopt ordinance 14111.
Throwing you off.
Second.
Three things are happening here. All of them are involving finance. $25,000 to the community center fund to cover year-end personnel costs. How much do we need? $35,000 to the sewer plant fund to cover year-end personnel expenses.
Other comments?
Personal services, I'm sorry, I read it. And then $75,000 to the internal service medical fund to cover possible year-end medical charges. Possible year-end. Not necessarily would we expend all that money. We're just making it available.
Other comments on ordinance 141? We're up to adopting, I believe, are we not? All those in favor of adoption of ordinance 14111? Aye. Opposed? The ordinance has been adopted. We now move on to one reading resolutions. R-1511 is a resolution asserting the obligations of the City of Athens and the interest of its citizens in the process of deep shale drilling and horizontal hydraulic fracturing within its jurisdiction. This has been introduced by all members of council. Who wishes to speak to it first?
I was wondering if you would read the whereases for us, Bill.
I would be more than happy to.
Oh, I saw that.
Yes, you did. I think I will put my glasses on for this. Whereas Athens City Council acknowledges the current provisions of ORC Section 1509.02, giving oil and gas well permitting authority to ODNR as stated by Law Director Lane. And whereas Ohio municipalities are also required by law to protect the health and safety of their citizens from pollution of their water supply. And whereas the City of Athens drinking water supply is a sole source aquifer adjacent to and recharged by the Hocking River, and water withdrawals from the aquifer and or Hocking River will have a deleterious effect on the city's water supply, which is our public duty to maintain. And whereas the water table in our well fields range from surface level to 20 feet below the surface throughout the year, and whereas the aquifer that feeds Athens' water supply is shallow, averaging 60 feet below ground level, and is therefore especially susceptible to pollution from surface level and near surface level contamination, and whereas recent scientific findings of the U.S. EPA called the Pavilion Findings, released November 9, 2011, detected benzene at 50 times the established federal safe drinking water level, phenols, methane, and drilling and fracturing materials known as 2-BE, 2-butyl, thank you, Bain.
That's why you're reading it.
Oxyethanol after 2 decades of ground injection by Encana in the Pavilion Basin, and whereas the U.S. EPA is conducting a national study on the impacts of horizontal hydraulic fracturing on national and local water supplies based on extensive incidents of contamination and suspected contamination, and whereas Ohio municipalities are required by law to maintain the public highways, streets, avenues, alleys, sidewalks, public grounds, bridges, aqueducts, and viaducts within the municipal corporation, and whereas it is the constitutional duty of Athens elected officials to protect the health, safety, and welfare of people within its jurisdiction, and air emissions of methane, volatile organic compounds, noxious fumes, and particulate matter from industrial burnings, industrial equipment operation, storage pond vaporization, and excessive truck traffic will jeopardize public health and well-being. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Athens, Athens County, Ohio, that, you wish me to continue, or is that?
Oh, you're doing great, go.
Doing great, go. Section 1, the exercise of required drilling rights permitted pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 150902, remains subject to the city's local police power, including but not limited to the Athens Zoning Code, Title 23, Athens Subdivision Regulations, Title 21, EPA Required Wellhead Protection Plan, Title 39, and Water Quality Management Requirements. Section 2, the City of Athens shall execute and enforce ordinances and regulations within its jurisdiction as necessary to protect its water supply and air quality. Section 3, the City of Athens shall execute and enforce ordinances and regulations within its jurisdiction as necessary to protect from pollution the city and its subdivisions and into the wastewater treatment stream. Section 4, the City of Athens shall execute and enforce its ordinances and regulations as necessary to maintain the thoroughfares under its care and funding. Section 5, required curb cuts, road standards, construction, and other bonds, and road construction will be subject to the conditions and current requirements as stated in the Athens City Code. Section 6, this resolution shall be in effect and full force upon its passage and approval by the mayor. Is there anything else I may read for you, Ms.?
Oh, maybe something later on.
Okay.
I think we should all take credit, community members, council members, we've talked about this back and forth. We'll see where it goes. I think it has one focus that I'd like to underline, and then I'm going to let other people speak. I know Kent was saying he was staying up late, getting up early in the morning and having these nightmares about Clean Water Act, right? I mean, it's very serious. Of all the things that I think I'm most worried about, this is certainly one of them. We have police power, which we exercise. The state has given it to us. It could be taken back, but I don't know that it would be. It's exercised in the zoning code and in subdivision regulations protecting public health and safety. The state, in its wisdom, does do some preemption. It appears that it has given fracking such a preemption. But if we look at the other preemptions that are out there, liquor control, for example, you can put a bar almost anywhere, but they're not allowed to violate the rest of the zoning code that speaks not to the location but to the surrounding territory. The same could be said for halfway houses and mental health care delivery, power plants, and others. So the bonds and all the other things that you would require as a local authority to protect public health and safety, which is your duty by the state, will be in place. The only thing that won't be in place that would be allowed by 1209, apparently, is the location. I mean, we can't tell them how to frack because, after all, most of us wouldn't have the skill to do that. But we can say, if you're doing it, this is what we want from you in this area, because, after all, we have that authority, or we have it in other areas where preemption happens. That's the basic argument. And I'll let Ken talk about his anguish, right?
Yes, thanks.
Member Butler.
Thank you. And again, I do want to acknowledge as well, too, that we're members of the community that helped put these ideas together as well, and the mayor worked with a few of us, too. So, again, I'm very thankful and appreciative. And you know, all joking aside, yes, this is something that worries me and concerns me because it's primarily, it's health and safety and the wellness of our community. And when I think of my day job as an advocate for young people and their struggles with addiction, my night job as a council member, I feel that my need is to advocate for the community and its safety and wellness. And as one individual, I know that I have many limitations in that ability. But this is something that is it's no small issue. It's a big issue. It's been covered in the New York Times, the Dispatch, WOUB, NPR, the Cleveland Plain Dealer. My dad just talked to me on the phone yesterday about an article he read in the Plain Dealer. Locally here, we've seen articles in the Athens News, the Messenger, the OU Post. It's a concern. Obviously, when the EPA starts digging into something, it's a big issue. There was a study recently by a professor at the Ohio State University, the university up north, Professor Mark Partridge, economics professor specializing in urban and rural development at Ohio State. It's an interesting article, but I'll just mention a few highlights. He was acknowledging basically a need for more realistic expectations in the economic viability of this particular industry. Essentially, his study, which was released this week, predicts that the boom in drilling will lead to 20,000 new jobs over the next several years, far fewer than a previous industry predicted study that said 200,000. He predicted, this 20,000 jobs would be created both directly and indirectly from drilling. His report acknowledges that the industry study made unrealistic assumptions about the percentage of spending and hiring that would remain in Ohio when the industry matures. It also ignored, he said, the costs that a boom in drilling could have on other sectors, which has been a big part of our discussion here, such as the potential for displacing coal miners and causing, this is the big point, causing environmental damages that could hurt tourism and other activities. Air, water quality. We talk a lot also about our food industry here in this community and how important it is to many of us. It also doesn't account for the cost to communities for such expenses as maintaining roads. And this is just one small study. There's many more out there. Again, this is a big issue. Countries such as France have a ban on hydraulic fracking in 2011. There's a moratorium in South Africa. There's opposition in the UK. Australia has a moratorium. Canada and Quebec has this temporary suspension pending environmental review. And there's also a review going on in Nova Scotia. Thank you.
Other comments?
No.
Member Paul.
I'd like to personally say that the first whereas, I have a problem. I don't have a problem. I will accept it into the resolution. However, when the state authority butts up against the ability for us as a council and as a community to protect the health, welfare, and safety of our citizens, then there has to be some kind of looking at the ORC. And I feel at this point, because of the information that is coming out about fracking, the industrial development of rural areas, and the health and safety issues of fracking, I think that we need to question the ORC. And I know that Law Director Lang has talked about this. However, I think that it is up to us as a council to look at this seriously. Second of all, I see this resolution as a first step. I think that there are other issues and other resolutions or ordinances that we can take. As it stands now, according to the ORC, fracking, if somebody has, they don't necessarily have to pay attention to our wellhead protection ordinances or our zoning ordinances. This is unacceptable to me personally, and as a representative and a protector of the health and safety of our citizens. Third, I want to emphasize that bonds or any other permits that need to be put forward need to be in the city. Right now, the governor is negotiating and making a deal with various oil drilling entities to look at whether they should take bonds for street maintenance or road maintenance. Does that mean that the state gets the bonds? So the city, all of a sudden, the city, I'm being Nancy, the city gets nothing? Do we not get our bonds? So that means that if there's damage to our city streets, that the bond is not there, it's in the state. I think that's a serious issue, seeing how the state has kind of not been a good partner in these sort of things. I think that we also should look seriously at the issues. Halliburton just asked townships and county entities to give them benefits for opening jobs up in Zanesville. They want to have tax benefits and such from the townships. So they're starting to do this, fighting townships off of each other in order to have this big job boom. I also think that we should realize that this is an industrial development of our landscape. We have a rural landscape, and this is not just one well here and there. It's an industrial development of our landscape. Not only is it a well, people always think about the well that's going down, the cement casing, the different things, but what about the ponds, the toxic waste sites, the water withdrawals? These need to be talked about too. Today, the governor talked about having strong regulations governing the oil industry. We need to hold his feet to the fire, because we haven't necessarily seen that he has followed through on these sort of promises. And our zoning is really important. We are a small city. However, we do have some areas that are open. University Estates is a perfect example of that. When people talk about why did we want to buy University Estates and protect the wellhead, I'm just going to say, I told you so.
Other comments from council members first? Comments from those in the audience? Yes. Come forward if you could state your name and your address or affiliation. You're asked to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Okay, thank you.
My name is Bill Carroll, and I am the rector of the Episcopal Church of the Good Shepherd, and I am a resident of 206 East State Street in Athens. I have 2 school-aged children who live in Athens. I have many parishioners who are very concerned about the impact of this practice on their livelihood in some cases. I've heard council members speak to the fact that this is a local economy that depends heavily on things like local food, organic food, on ecological tourism, on history, on all kinds of tourism to bring people here. And we are really jeopardizing not only our local water supply, but also our livelihood for many of the people who live here by even considering engaging in this practice. I applaud the council for introducing a strong resolution. I think where it comes to a test is whether you are as vigorous as you ought to be in fighting this tooth and nail, keeping this from happening for as long as possible. Our diocese, the Diocese of Southern Ohio, is about 30,000 people, reflecting the full breadth of people in this state, about 50-50 in terms of parties, and we overwhelmingly passed a resolution calling on US EPA to institute a moratorium. I think it's going to take some stalling to get to the point where that happens. We need to stop this moving train, and I depend on council to do exactly what you said you would do and defend the health and safety of the citizens of Athens and to defend our water supply and our ecosystems upon which we all depend. We have seen the effects of coal mining in this region. This really does make that look sort of small in comparison. We're talking about releasing carcinogenic compounds into our drinking water, and we need to fight it. And I would urge you also to consider other legal strategies for tying this up in court. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Are there others in the audience wishing to speak to this? Any other comments from council members?
Thank you.
Yes, Member Butler.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for the comments from the community. I'll just be brief. I've had similar curiosity and questions from community members about this particular issue and wondering what to do. One thought addition would be to contact your state, or your federal senator, federal representatives, and encourage them to support the FRAC Act, which was first introduced to Congress, both houses, in 2009. It's also been part of the 112th Congress, which is serving from 2011 to 2012. It's Senate Bill 587 at the federal level, the FRAC Act. And again, this is an act that aims to repeal exemption of hydraulic fracking for the Safe Water Drinking Act. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
I believe there were some other comments from
Is
the
there
community.
others from the audience wishing to speak?
Heather.
No? Okay. All those in favor of Resolution 1511? I'm sorry.
I was just make an additional comment that I would agree we need to enact this for the health and safety of the population because of some of the things mentioned, the carcinogenic materials that can become part of our system, our water system, and also, potential depletion of our water supply. And just to put it in a broader perspective, too, along with the 30,000 people in the Southern Ohio Diocese, there are also 9 other communities in Ohio who have enacted a legislation about this. We've got 63 other cities and counties in New York that have enacted legislation about it. So I think it's important for us to move together to do something.
Mayor Weil.
I would agree that we probably need to start talking about and contacting our representatives, both state and federal levels, for a moratorium on the activity. Conversations with Representative Phillips, she points out that a third of the employment in Hocking County is actually tourism-based. I don't think anybody's going to come down to Hocking County to look at oil wells after everything's gone at this point. Our aquifer goes all the way up there. It is a tsunami of activity that's coming at us. I would be concerned. I think this should be one of the litmus tests for the upcoming elections on the county level, state level. I think we should contact everybody and say this is what we want to see, what's going to happen. We are limited in what we can do. We can pick a fight. If we choose to do that, that's up to all of us right here. The other would be to educate and see if we can actually slow it down, make sure that people are aware of what they're getting into before they step into it, especially with the leasing side of it. There seems to be a gold rush going on here, and we know that it's going to be sloppy, and it's going to be messy, and there are going to be mistakes made. I am apprehensive. I don't know really what we can do short of putting injunctions out there, putting sheriffs and arresting them or something, but we only have so much police powers, and we're limited. We'll get ourselves in the same boat as criminals they could be at this point. That's all I really have to say. It's more than I want to say, really, but the fact is it is upsetting. We could be losing our water. We could be a desert.
Any other comments? All those in favor of Resolution 1511?
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution passes unanimously. Member Sands, why don't I let you handle the next 3 resolutions?
Okay, Resolution R-1611, one reading resolution, introduced by all members of council. This resolution expresses the appreciation of the city of Athens, Ohio, to Nancy Bain for her public service. Whereas Nancy Bain was appointed to serve as a council member in December 1984 and has been elected and served the city with distinction for 27 years. And whereas Nancy Bain has attended to the important role of mentoring newly elected members throughout her city council tenure, to which all of us would agree there. And whereas Nancy Bain's support of environmental initiatives, including developing the city's first curbside recycling program in the 1980s, and her continued promotion of the city's recycling efforts and commitment to reducing dependence on landfills has been significant to our community's role and responsibility for a cleaner environment. And whereas Nancy Bain has the courage to freely express her opinions, to make her voice heard, whether popular or unpopular, and the conviction and strong beliefs to do what she believes is fair and right in the best interest of her constituents and of the community. And whereas Nancy Bain has generously given her time to be a public servant, and whereas this council wishes her well as she embarks on a new stage of her life, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio. Section 1, the City of Athens does hereby express its appreciation to Nancy Bain for her faithful and distinguished service to the city as a member of the Athens City Council. In Section 2, the Clerk of Council is hereby directed to present a certified copy of this resolution to Nancy Bain.
Thank you very much. I'm almost speechless, but not quite. Thank you very much. I especially appreciate number 3 and number 4, all of them actually. Thank you very much. Oh, very nice.
Do we name today as Nancy Bain Day?
It's almost over. You can't do that. Thank you. Very nice.
Voted on it.
Okay, I move that we accept Resolution R-1611.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay.
Do I need to break the tie?
R-1711. A resolution expressing the appreciation of the City of Athens, Ohio, to Bill Bias for his public service. Whereas Bill Bias was elected in January 1990 as an at-large member of the Athens City Council, serving 4 terms, and elected in January 2002 as President of City Council, serving 5 terms. And whereas Bill Bias served on the City Services Committee and chaired the Finance and Personnel Committee, and whereas Bill Bias made himself available to newly elected council members, providing them guidance, direction, and encouragement. Again, all of us here know that. And whereas Bill Bias's leadership skills were invaluable as City Council President in his ability to keep council focused amidst difficult and serious community discussions. And whereas Bill Bias, as City Council President, always ensured that council was open and welcoming to visitors attending meetings, educating, informing them of City Council protocol. And whereas this council wishes him well in his quest to serve as Athens County Treasurer, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio, Section 1, the City of Athens does hereby express its appreciation to Bill Bias for his faithful and distinguished service to the city as a member of Athens City Council. And Section 2, the Clerk of Council is hereby directed to present a certified copy of this resolution to Bill Bias. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our clerk is not doing her job.
Does it have a horse in front of it?
Yeah.
That one does.
You want to say anything?
Oh, boy, I could take an hour, and I promise you I won't, but Nancy, didn't both of us come to town in 1969?
I know you're older than I am. No, 71.
Okay, I came in 69 as a student at OU, first in my family to ever get to go to college. And to think that 40-something years later, never very good at math, I'm finishing up 22 years of service to the City of Athens. And it has been such an honor. Everyone on this council, I really appreciate so much. Nancy, certainly you and I go way back, and your friendship will always be one that I treasure. Jim, I remember asking you to run for council, and to think that you're taking over, and I know you're going to do a great job. Pat, I'll never forget this young kid talking to me about running for city council, and I thought, You don't look a lot older now, but anyway, and now you're running for Congress. That's phenomenal. I'll wish you only the best. Paul Weil and I probably go back a lot further than anyone, over 30 years. I've known you as a lab rat at OU, as you talked about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I got elected here somehow, and you kind of followed just to sit over there and annoy everybody for the longest time. I tried. Howard Stevens one time said, either get out or get in. And if Howard only knew how long you've been here. The citizens of Athens has given me the opportunity to debate the issues, to take care of its treasury, to try to manage the debate and make this place a welcoming body, and I hope I've been able to do manage the debate in a dignified manner. That was one thing I really wanted to do. But in my day job, as Councilmember Butler was saying earlier, they've also given me the honor and privilege to take care of their parents, their elderly, and all of that. So this community has given me so much that I will never, ever stop being grateful for. And with that, thank you all.
Thank you, Bill. And I think we already voted on that. Resolution R1811. Again, introduced by all members of council, a resolution expressing the appreciation of the city of Athens, Ohio, to Sherry Kuhn for her public service. Whereas Sherry Kuhn was elected as second ward representative in January 2008 and has served 2 terms in this position, and whereas Sherry Kuhn's contributions to city priorities have been steadfast, and whereas Sherry Kuhn was a strong advocate for the safety of our community by successfully sponsoring the city's purchase of a fire ladder truck and installation of carbon monoxide detectors in residential rental units, and whereas Sherry Kuhn tackled updating the ever-challenging noise issue, keeping both permanent and transient residents in mind. And whereas Sherry Kuhn has generously given her time as a public servant, and whereas this council wishes her well in her future endeavors, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio. Section 1, the City of Athens does hereby express its appreciation to Sherry Kuhn for her faithful and distinguished service to the city as a member of Athens City Council. And Section 2, the Clerk of Council is hereby directed to present a certified copy of this resolution to Sherry Kuhn. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, Sherry.
It's been an honor to serve, and I will miss you all on Monday nights. And
So you'll be watching us, right?
yes, thank you. I'm delighted to get this. Thank you so much.
Bill, you want to take over now?
I would like to take it back because for a couple of reasons. One, I forgot to mention someone that I need to thank desperately, and there is nobody on this council that has a need to thank. Debbie Walker. For making us look good. Debbie, for years I was a regional director for a nursing home company driving all over 3 states, and how many hours would we spend on the telephone, talking, sometimes about council business, but not always. We passed terrible notes about every one of you up here, back and forth. Debbie has made every moment enjoyable, but I don't know of a better example of a great public servant. Debbie makes us all look good. Debbie does the work of council. I don't know how to say anything, but you I will miss so much, and I love you a lot, kiddo. So take care. Anyone else wishing? Were you finished?
I was finished, but I just want to say thank you, Debbie, too, for all your help.
Where are we on the agenda? I seem to have buried mine somewhere.
And now Announcements and other business.
Announcements. I have announcements.
That's where we are. Announcements and other business.
I would like to reappoint Betty Hollow to the Zoning Board of Appeals for another
3 years.
3 years. Second. Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second?
This is somebody I doubt that anyone even needs to discuss the value that she has served for so many years there and has done such a great job in what is not always an easy role to serve. So I am only thrilled that Betty is willing to do it one more time. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Congratulations yet one more time, Betty. Any other announcements or other business? We now have an opportunity for citizens to speak on any legislative items or city services that we did not cover on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone wishing to speak before council tonight? Bob?
Well, it's,
Bob, we need you to come up here so that they can hear you out in TV land. You know, they might be able to get you with a camera, but if you could just state your name and either address or affiliation.
My name is Bob Sadmary. I'm an Athenian for a long time, and my address would be 15 West State Street, which is where my place of business is. And I'm only here just to say that I'm very grateful for this community, for being so supportive in general with lifestyles in this community, but also in the business sense, and leading up to the fact that I've been in business now almost 9 years at my little hole in the wall, and everyone's been so helpful and supportive that we're expanding our empire to the other end of town, 2 blocks. So we'll have 2 locations, and it's because of the support and the integration that we have here as a community on a business level and a social level. But I'd like to thank everyone for that, and also say that I will be employing between, about 15 people, full-time and part-time jobs, and that the reception's been really great so far, and because I was excited, except for maybe the paint job. But I want to let everybody know that we're having a ribbon cutting. Everyone's invited Thursday, the last Thursday of this month, I guess it's next week already, at 12 o'clock, and the mayor's going to help us with that. And then we're going to have a soft opening on Friday, December 30th, I believe, from 6 to 8, and everyone's invited to come and just see how we pull things off. If there's we're just going to practice serving food, and you guys could eat it, and there's no charge. At 30 West Union, Betty's on Union. So I would, that's pretty much it. I just want to say thanks to everybody and the people we work with, Fluff Bakery, Casa, you guys for eating there, and, you know, I'm hiring some of your kids. So anyway, thanks again, and that's about it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak before council? Seeing none, but having one more item on our agenda, that being an executive session that I believe was called by the law director to discuss with us where we are in some collective bargaining issues. So that clock says 9:02. Why don't we say at 9:15, we're going to ask everybody to leave the room so that we can go into an executive session, and after that, the only thing that we will do is our final adjournment of the year. Thank you all. Oh, okay. We've got to do all this. Member Butler, you're so good at this. I depend on you for this.
Man. Well, who do we want in this meeting? The
She wants to be there. I don't see him. Okay.
Do you need to be there?
The auditor.
Yeah, usual suspects.
Awesome. Okay.
Oh, how about Steve? How about Steve Patterson?
Steve Patterson, you need to be here.
Yes.
Are there any other future members of council?
They're watching on TV.
And the personnel director?
And the auditor, correct?
Yes.
Recess.
The treasurer is more than welcome if she'd like. Okay. Roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Thank you very much. See you next year.